That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about A Nice Indian Boy, the third film directed by Roshan Sethi, which premiered at the 2024 South by Southwest Film Festival. Blue Harbor Entertainment released it April 4th, 2025 in several markets. It expands April 11th across the country in various cinemas.
Are you familiar with this director's other films?
No. His debut was 7 Days, which starred the lead in this film, Karan, Soni, as well as Geraldine Viswanathan. And his sophomore film was called World's Best. I have seen neither of those to date.
What is The Nice Indian Boy about? When Naveen brings his fiancée Jay home to meet his traditional Indian family, they must contend with accepting his white orphan-artist boyfriend and helping them plan the Indian wedding of their dreams. What is your pull quote?
Joyously endearing evidence that well-written rom-coms remain an affirming pleasure. A Nice Indian Boy hits all the familiar notes, but damn, it does so with exhilaration.
Mine. A Nice Indian Boy is a heartwarming, if not slight, love story, one perfectly suited for a Sunday afternoon with a warm cup of tea. This feels like the perfect movie to show like someone's parents.
I think I liked this film a lot more than you did.
I enjoyed it, but it is...
I got teary at least twice during this movie. I was not this film was not on my radar. I was like, we probably should cover it. We didn't make time last week. And I just was...
It's very sweet.
I was surprised.
Yeah, it's very sweet, and I enjoyed it. I'd watch it again.
I would too. It's based on a play by Madhuri Shekar.
So Naveen is played by...
Karan, Soni, who you probably know from Deadpool. He's also in Abbott Elementary.
Oh, he's the cab driver in Deadpool. That's right. So he is this nice Indian boy. He's a doctor. He's single. His family, he tells us that they're more progressive than your traditional Indian family. So he has mom, dad, and a sister. And the film opens with his sister marrying a doctor.
And his sister's played by Sunita Mani, who we've seen in many films, including Death of a Unicorn this past month.
That's right. So the film is broken up into 5 chapters, and you could tell the story very quickly off these chapters. So chapter 1 is the boy. Who's the boy? Jonathan Groff, Jay.
Let's hear it for him.
Denise Williams. So he's white, but was adopted by Indian parents. So he's very attuned to the culture, which we need to get back to. He's a freelance photographer, which Naveen's dad says is American for like unemployed.
He's not wrong.
But that's the boy. The love is chapter 2, and they basically have now started dating. They end up getting into a little snafu at a friend's house, which then evolves into them becoming engaged. Chapter 3 is the family. This is when Naveen finally introduces Jay to his family, and that doesn't go very well, which we'll get to. So they end up breaking up. Chapter 4 is the music, which refers to a film that is known as DDLJ.
I don't even want to, I can't pronounce this, but Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayant. Which I think in English, the close translation is The Big-Hearted Will Take the Bride. And it stars a very young Shah Khan, who you've seen in films.
So we know that the first sort of like meet cute, well, it's not the meet cute, it's the first like kind of date Jay and Naveen go on. Jay takes Naveen to see DDLJ. And initially, Naveen's like, oh, I don't know this movie, it's kind of weird, blah, blah, blah. But we learn later from Naveen's sister that Naveen grew up loving this film. He was just trying to play it off like he didn't.
To this white man.
Because he was awkward and whatever. But to get Jay back, Naveen sort of recreates a scene from the movie on video and plays it for Jay. And then chapter 5 is the wedding. So it's the wedding planning. There's some awkwardness with Naveen's dad because it's not so much that he doesn't accept his gay son. It's just that he's not able to communicate his feelings. The entire family seems to struggle with communication.
Which is kind of a universal element to the film, perhaps.
But they're able to get over that. And I think the film shines in the final chapter.
Which, to be fair, that's where a lot of rom-coms fall miserably apart.
Sure. So we have the wedding, which is quite beautiful, which we'll get to. And they we hope live happily ever after. The end. Okay. Yeah, I really liked it. I thought the two leads had a lot of really sweet chemistry.
They did. I can't remember the last time I saw a gay couple, especially an interracial gay couple, that I'm like, oh, they seem like they could belong together.
Well, and of course, I'm thinking of The Parenting, because that's an interracial gay couple with a white guy and an Indian guy. And I thought, while the two of them are cute, I didn't feel like they seemed like they belonged together.
I agree. My very first boyfriend was from India, and we had a hard time finding anything that resembled that looked like whatever we were doing. But around that time, A Touch of Pink had just come out with Jimmy Mystery. But also there was My Beautiful Laundrette. But that 1985 Stephen Frears, there's a lot of strife going on, whatever that situationship is in that film. So this feels like we've come a long way.
So in the opening at Naveen's sister's wedding, of course, everyone is asking him, like, you're next, when are you getting married? And of course, he's struggling because he knows that he's gay, but that while his family knows, they don't really talk about it. And it seems like his dad in particular does not want Naveen sort of talking about it with their community.
Being gay, or engaging in being gay in front of the family, yes.
But I liked everyone. I will say the acting abilities across the board vary.
I didn't mind. The mother's played by Zarna Garg, who's making her film debut, but she's a comedian, and I was unaware of her before seeing this, but she kind of was giving me like Ms. Pat vibes based on her background story, because she grew up homeless as a teenager and just the struggle she's got.
Oh, that's a good comparison, because I found her extremely charming.
Yes.
And fun, not unlike Miss Pat. But I have the same critique of Miss Pat, is that she's definitely not an actor first.
No, but such a joy to watch, though.
I agree. As was the dad, a very sweet man.
Harish Patel, who's a character actor who's been in a ton of stuff, but
and his character's supposed to be stiff.
Yeah, and reserved and closed off.
Yeah.
And,
So one of the first times we hear the mom talking to Naveen, she's talking to him about the movie Milk. And I found that very relatable, like how, like my mom will just randomly bring up something gay she saw on TV.
Oh God, I remember Philadelphia.
But I think one of my favorite characters in the movie is Naveen's colleague at the hospital, another doctor.
Paul, played by Peter S. Kim.
I thought he was really cute and funny.
I mean, there's some broad-ish moments, but you also get some really good lines that don't seem so tacked on either, like it's part of the fabric of the film.
Sure.
Because that's the kind of character that I think, if played a certain way, can be very jarring.
I did like this movie. I think you liked it more than I did, because I feel like the first half was a little rough to me, because it's frustrating watching Naveen be so flat and unwilling to open up. And I don't know that I'm not quite, it doesn't really tackle the idea that perhaps Jay is sort of fetishizing Indian culture to a degree, and maybe that's why he's trying so hard with... I don't know why Jay was trying so hard with Naveen, because after that first date I would have been, okay, well, if you're interested, you can come find me, because I don't have a hard time finding a man. It's like, I don't understand why Jay was trying so hard.
Because I think when you see something worth pursuing, that's what you should do. You pursue it. And I think that's the difference between these two characters, is that, kind of ironically, the Jonathan Groff character was adopted into this culture and was raised to be very communicative and open and expressive with his feelings, whereas Naveen is kind of the opposite, and dare I say, like, probably more typical, even though he says his parents are more progressive for Indian parents. But because that's, I think, the underlying theme of this film is like to communicate, say what you feel.
Right, but the point I was trying to make is I don't know that initially Naveen was demonstrating like, oh, this is someone I should hold on to.
I think that he hasn't been able to feel like that can be something attainable for him. Is how I felt about him, and I think maybe that's where I would have liked a little more time with the family because, he's juxtaposed with his older sister who is, it's not an arranged marriage per se, but as she says in the film, it was implied that this man your mother's put together, it's implied you're going to marry this man, and she's in an unhappy marriage. She's on the verge of a divorce, and she feels kind of resentful about how her parents are embracing her younger gay brother, which is, doesn't seem like something that would have ever been possible, and yet she was still stuck to this standard kind of gender role.
That's another thing I wish would have been a little different is I feel like the story should have focused on the brother and sister equally and the contrast between this family expecting their daughter to marry a successful man and they're arranging it versus the son who they love and accept, but they really don't see the same life for him and so they're not as involved. It really leans heavily on Naveen, obviously, hence the title of the movie. But I think that the sister storyline feels, it's pretty significant to kind of just be swept under the rug a little bit.
I don't think it's insignificant, but I was straight up expecting her to say like, I was in love with this white boy and you made me marry this Indian man.
Okay, well, let's talk about that because chapter 3, when they meet the family, when Naveen brings Jay to meet his family, the sister is being real stank. Basically, she never says this except that she says, if I would have brought home a white guy, y'all would have flipped the house upside down. And here you are trying to accommodate him. She's being so extra rude that it was kind of unbelievable until we understand, we get a hint that maybe there's something going on in her relationship. Yeah. And at the very end, she goes, well, I'm getting a divorce. So she's angry that she's in this situation because she felt pressure to marry someone she didn't love. And so I don't think that is insignificant. I just wish that
she reads like the oldest child that was treated more like an adult and held to higher standards.
Because then in the second half of the movie, when the sister has left her husband, we never see the husband again.
That's true.
And we don't really know what she's doing. Like, we don't really know what she does for work or if she's going to be okay financially. It doesn't seem like Naveen's parents have money. But she's just sort of like lingering at Naveen's place. And then at that point, I feel like there's a lot of wasted time with her. Except that she's just there with Naveen.
I think she's there for reconciliation. Like this wedding is like kind of the family really coming together, maybe in the most complete way for the first time.
I also don't get a sense of how long these two have been together before they become engaged and when the wedding happens. Because when the two meet initially, Jay invites Naveen to his art show. Like, his work is being shown at a museum, or it looks like a museum, it's huge. And then at the end of the film, right before they're about to get married, Naveen's dad goes to visit Jay's artwork. So, does he have a permanent installation in this museum? Like, how much time has passed? But I will say it was a very sweet moment because the dad goes to see Jay's work and see Jay has a portrait with his Indian parents. And so immediately the next scene is the dad has invited Jay over to basically like bless the union. Yeah, and that was a very sweet moment.
That was the first teary moment for me in that. But the dad in this relationship is the one that cooks, and he's making korma, and Jonathan Groff is trying to give him tips like, oh, you should put dates in it. But they have a really nice, lovely, tender moment. And the other scene that got me kind of weepy was the mother speaking at the wedding.
I think the best moment in the film is the wedding, and specifically the mom's speech that leads into a dance. But the first snafu this couple has is they're headed to a friend's house, one of Jay's friend's houses, for lunch. And as on their way there, they bump into Naveen's brother-in-law, his sister's husband. And Naveen freezes because he doesn't know how to introduce Jay.
Forgets his name.
And it's the brother-in-law who's like, okay, well, nice to meet you, person. And Jay has to introduce himself. And so Jay's upset. Like, you couldn't even tell this person, who I don't even know who they are, who I am to you.
And then he's like, if you meet my family, you'd understand. And Jay goes,
he's like, if. So they get to the friend's house for lunch, and it's awkward between the two, as if they've gotten into a fight. So Naveen's being quiet, and Jay, their character types are opposite. Naveen's very reserved, shy, super awkward, while Jay likes to sing in public, and he's very outgoing. So he brings that shit up at the table. Like, we're going to talk about this. And it's awkward, but then it turns into Naveen basically asking Jay to marry him. I thought that scene was well done.
Yes, both of these actors, Karen Soni and Jonathan Groff, are adept at crying, which is very helpful in scenes like those. Because how many rom-coms have you watched where something that's supposed to be moving and the actor is not,
Emoting.
the eyes are dry.
You don't have to bring up HIPAA stuff. When they're at the family's house, kind of a running gag is that the mom in particular likes to watch Out TV.
Well, that's how she learns about gay culture, but this shit is raggedy gay culture.
Well, because while Jay and Naveen are there, they're watching DILF Island, or For the Love of DILFs, which is a real show. And Naveen is watching it with Jay, and he goes, the one guy on the screen, that twink came into the hospital and died, which of course is a HIPAA violation.
But the dad is in the living room. He's like, we put this on for you.
Yeah. The wedding. So the mom chooses this wedding planner, and I thought he was really funny because he's just about his money. Like, I don't care if you're gay, whatever. I just, as long as the check clears.
He says, thank you for letting me take care of this homo wedding.
Yeah, homo wedding. And he's wearing one of those Bluetooth earpieces, yelling at everyone. I thought he was good, but they go to like a barn to choose review the wedding location, and Naveen's dad stays in the car. So Naveen goes to confront him, like, why didn't you come in? And then they start having a conversation about basically how the dad is concerned what the community will think. And it ends with Naveen telling his dad, like, you don't have to come to the wedding. There are some moments that felt overly dramatic because I feel like we didn't get enough.
Sure, like also when Jonathan Groff has to get his saffron and he's leaving because I should have known you weren't for me because when I sang and danced in front of you in the street, you recoiled.
Well, before that, when he leaves Naveen's parents' house, he just kind of he doesn't storm out, he excuses himself, but he gets up and leaves.
And Sunita Manny says, like, well, maybe I did you a favor because it's kind of her fault that ripple effect happens at the visiting the parents. And she's like, if it was so fragile, maybe it wasn't meant to be, which, you know, that's some truth right there. But again, they both, as we all are people that kind of have to get over some of those bumps that seem like such a big deal, but especially in retrospect, you know, are like, what were you thinking? Like, just say what it is, and can you deal with that or not?
At a point, I don't know where they are, but Naveen and his sister are somewhere with a very hunky man without his shirt on putting together furniture when all of a sudden the mom storms in. And again, I thought she had a really good moment where she basically explains, like, to her son, like, you are being really unfair because 6 years ago you come out as gay and then you just leave to go, like, to medical school, and then we don't hear from you, and then all of a sudden you come back and you have a boyfriend and you're telling me you're getting engaged twice and you don't expect there to be a little confusion.
There's no room. Like, you gotta give me a minute.
But the most powerful thing she said that touched me is the mom says, I'm so afraid to talk to you and say the wrong thing. And that felt very real.
That felt very real.
Like, we need to give our families grace. But yeah, the scene where Naveen's dad invites Jay over because he shares a story. He's trying to relate to Jay, saying that when he was a kid, he wanted to be a cook, but that his dad did not accept that. Like, that was not an appropriate profession for him. And the dad actually, like, cut him because the dad shows Jay, like, a big scar on his arm saying, when I told my dad I wanted to cook, he did this to me. So then he never followed his dream.
And he said times were different then, and we also happen to know that Jay has a scar on his shoulder from a foster parent.
That's right.
Doing something similar. And he's like, well, maybe not so much.
But again, the highlight, I think, of the movie is the wedding, specifically Naveen's mom's speech, because she gives this unannounced speech or unscheduled speech, and basically tries to, because her children confront her saying that you and dad had an arranged marriage. It's a loveless marriage. We don't want to be like you. So she gets them together, but in a funny way, because she's telling the story like she's talking about sex, but she's relating it to food. But then it actually is about food because she realized that she does love her husband and that they found a way to take this seed and turn it into, like, a love that continues to grow. And I thought that was really beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, again, it might be formulaic in a way, although would plug in different specificities, but I think a well-worn formula still really works if the intention, if the feeling, and the emotion and the creativity is there.
We also learned that traditionally it's the groom's family who perform a dance for the bride, and then the groom's father will dance with the bride. So of course, initially they're like, well, what are we supposed to do? There are two men, and like, I'm not going to dance with
Who's the bride?
But then they do surprise him in the end. Naveen's family, he and his family perform a dance for Jay. And then I think a moment that made me teary-eyed is Naveen's dad goes to dance with Jay, and then showing that they have fully accepted him. But yeah, I would highly recommend this movie.
Yeah, I'm the same.
What would you give A Nice Indian Boy?
3.5.
I think it's good. I would give it 3 out of 5. Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.